Welcome back. It's good to see you. Thanks so much for checking out the Rewired Gamer. This is episode number 1. If you've ever seen anything I've done, I believe your foundation starts with attitude. On today's show, we're going to talk about attitude. What does attitude really mean and how to fix yours? I hope our fans are ready for a wild ride. Juggernaut or not, we're here to kick some ass.
If you say you just can't take any more, all you're really saying is I just don't want to go any higher.
Failure is not the opposite of success. It's only part of it.
And you kept fighting, and you kept fighting, and you kept fighting. That's all I ask from you guys ever.
Again, thanks a lot for joining us on the Rewired Gamer. We're really excited to dive into a lot of different topics to help the gaming community. People say, why are you doing this show? I'm doing this show because I am inundated with questions about these topics on darn near a daily basis. Today, we want to start with square one. We want to start with your foundation. We want to kind of start at a high level, and that is about attitude. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Attitude can be one of the most important things that helps you get further in life, in your gaming career, as a gamer, whatever you're trying to do. And it can also be one of the things that holds you back. I'm really excited again to be joined with our friend Ronnie Doss, all the way from sunny Arizona. How you doing, Ronnie?
Doing awesome, bud. What's happening?
Oh, I'm really excited about this show. We got a laundry list of topics, and many of them are going to be much more specific than this. You know, when we hear the word attitude and have a good attitude, it's such a huge topic. And a lot of people, I think, understandably so, are like, how do I improve my attitude? You know, maybe I've just had a bad life, or maybe I've had a bad day, or whatever it is, and I got to go into a big presentation or whatnot. So I'm excited to dive right in with this, you know?
Yeah, the idea that attitude really determines just about everything is so unbelievably true that I think it becomes a cliche statement that people just don't really understand how to own. You know, we hear it and it sounds good, but when we really own the idea that our attitude determines what we see, it determines our energy, it determines really how we show up to everything that we do. When we own that, we become empowered. When we don't own it and we just hear it and it sounds like a nice phrase,
Right.
something nice to say, what attitude determines your altitude and all that. We've
Right.
seen posters like that. We see all these powerful memes, but it's the old saying that it doesn't, the quotes don't work unless you do. And so you can have all the greatest phrases to share and to say, but until you take ownership of it, it just doesn't give you the power. And if you want to show up powerfully, I think the first thing you got to do is you got to check your attitude. So this is going to be a great show, bud. I'm excited about it.
I completely agree. And, you know, I've said this many times. One thing in my company, I've been working in esports for 17 years. You know, I can work with someone that has a good attitude. That we all make mistakes. We all have down days, you know, and life can be challenging. But if they bring a good attitude to work, it's something that I cherish as a boss, as a leader, as someone who's built esports companies and coached hundreds of gamers and worked with hundreds of gamers. And on the opposite side of that coin, when someone has a toxic attitude, I find that it spreads like a cancer, you know, through the organization or through the team or whatever group that person is interacting in. And I can't stress this enough, anyone that watches this show, and maybe they pull up this video and think, oh, that's basic, my attitude's fine. We all need to constantly be reevaluating our attitudes. You know, everybody needs to constantly be moving. You need to be swimming against the stream. You need to be improving. So don't just assume you have a good attitude. Dissect it. Objectively review it, and hopefully this video is going to provide you with the firm foundation. But I want to get started here, Ronnie, and we've put together a little bit of an outline, and you know, so some bullet points to kind of guide us, a little roadmap for you know what we're going to do today. And it's about an attitude of excellence, and it sounds cliche and it sounds maybe bland to some people, but can't stress enough how important attitude is and how important keeping, you know, your finger on your pulse of your attitude is. And, you know, the first bullet point that you suggested we start with today is attitude is your stored emotional history. Talk to us a little bit about what that means.
Well, but it's like this. So I got this sitting on my desk. I thought I'd use this. So there's a lens for a camera, right? And the lens determines like what you see. Like, say you look through the lens, you put it on the camera. Your attitude becomes that. It's ultimately, Jay, how you see things. And when you've stored up all of this emotion that really drives so much of our behavior. When I talk to people, we aren't so logical. We don't just do things because we think something. Most of the time, we have these knee-jerk, impulsive emotions or feelings, which are just chemicals, by the way. And I don't say just to minimize them. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. But we make our decisions out of our emotional state. And so when you have these emotions that you've gotten so used to, that becomes your attitude. Your attitude is ultimately your stored emotional history. And so when you think back to your childhood and go, oh, I felt this way then, it's very easy to carry that feeling or that emotion with you into the present moment. And so when you carry that with you, it becomes like this lens or this filter for which you see the present day, the moment that we have right here. And our attitude a lot of times causes us to, because we don't want to check our attitude or change our attitude, we don't really want to do that work. And I say we don't want to. We just really aren't committed to it. We may say we want to, but what you want and what you're committed to have nothing to do with each other. But when we see the present day through this filter of how I used to feel, and it hadn't felt good, and I didn't really feel good then, and right now I'm not willing to shift my attitude or do that work, then I bring that negativity in a sense or that emotion to the present moment.
Right.
And Jason, what I wind up doing is rushing through the day thinking that tomorrow is going to provide something to me that today doesn't have. And so I wind up being in such a hurry to get somewhere that I don't spend any time being anywhere and to really be somewhere and to experience the present moment for what it is and the richness of what it is with the opportunities and the resources and all the things that are out there. I have to learn to be present. And if I'm running from something because of this stored emotional history, then my attitude is not going to be one of, let's see what I can make happen today. Let's see what I can create from a very open space.
Right.
My attitude is a lot more of just carrying baggage with me about all the things that I experienced, which could have been blessings to me. But yet I carry a negative perspective on them because I think, well, that shouldn't have happened to me. And yes, there are a lot of things that shouldn't happen to us in our life. Trust me, I can have those conversations. There's a lot that we would say shouldn't happen to us. But the one thing that we can control is not whether or not that should or shouldn't have happened, is ultimately the perspective that we put on it for the moment. And when we carry this negative chemical response with us and we allow that in all the time, and we don't check ourselves and check our attitude, but it's almost like we become addicted to that. We can become addicted to ourselves in a sense. And this is so much of what attitude is.
Right.
Okay?
So attitude is your stored emotional history. And it becomes the almost like the camera lens with how you're looking at things. It's your paradigm. Is
Yep.
that accurate?
Absolutely. And you said paradigm. Some people call it programs or belief systems or filters, but let's call it paradigm. That's the word you used.
Right.
We carry this emotional history. We then develop this paradigm of, well, I guess this is the way life is, right? This is how my team's going to treat me. It's how my parents are.
Right.
It's how the world is. It's how God is. It's how the president is. It's how politicians are. It's how teachers are. It's all this, right? And you carry this paradigm. And well, guess what happens? Pressure, when it comes, and it's going to come. You guys know this. You're going to play at any level of life. I mean, you're really going to get after it. You're going to feel the pressure.
Yeah.
Well, pressure
100%.
paradigm. It provokes this stored emotional history. So if I have all this emotional history of stuff that I would say is negative that I've carried because I haven't worked my perspective or my focus on it, I carry that negative energy, Jason. Then guess what happens? When the pressure comes, it provokes that old thinking, that old feeling. And the next thing you know, now I'm standing in the same spot, feeling what I used to feel when whatever happened back then that I would say was so bad.
Yeah, when you're in the pressure cooker, all that emotional history comes back, and that's how you're viewing. That's where your attitude comes from.
And let me say this too, bud, and then we'll keep going with this. You know, attitude. People say, "Well, your attitude just be positive, just stay positive." And well, that's very powerful. You can choose to look at things from a positive perspective.
Right.
But when you're in the pressure cooker, a lot of times, if you haven't really confronted some of the paradigms and the beliefs and the emotional history and the baggage that you carry, right? You can try to be as positive as you want to be, right? But that old stuff kicks on and you start acting in a way that you don't even know why you act that way. It's like spending money. You guys probably been spending money before, telling yourself, I shouldn't be spending this money, but you're like just blasting the dollars off, right? Like, or I don't even know if we're going to use cash much more. I don't know. You're swiping the card when you know you shouldn't be, because the old paradigms, the old programs, it starts to outweigh the logical stuff that we tend to say we should think about. And so attitude is really, to me, because I go deeper into this stuff with what I do, Jason, as you know, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of facets to attitude. You can't just say I'm going to be positive. You gotta really confront what may be keeping you from having a more positive
Right.
attitude. And when we said this is about an attitude of excellence, we're not talking about perfection. Excellence and perfection have nothing to do with each other. Perfection is about how something looks. Excellence is about how something works. And when you work yourself, changing how you think, confronting old belief systems, you learn to work better. And when you're in the pressure cooker, you can handle the
Yep.
pressure and work well, because all of this old residue of this emotional history stuff is not pulling your strings like a puppet. And the next thing you know, you're acting and saying and doing, and you're acting like you did when you were a kid and
Right.
somebody,
Yeah.
was mean to you.
You know, with my teams and my managers that do the heavy lifting and run complexity, I'm always trying to imprint on them that you can't control many things. One thing you can control when you come to work each day, as a player or whatever your position is your effort. And I always teach my son that you can control your effort. All kinds of things can happen to you, but you get to control your effort. Another thing I've always kind of believed is, you know, you can control your attitude. And maybe that was a little misguided in that first you need to kind of understand where that attitude's coming from, especially in the pressure cooker, before you can try to control it. It's not as simple as like, hey, have a positive attitude. It's you need to delve a little deeper. You need to understand where is this stored emotional history coming from? How have you viewed it before? Maybe you need to deal with it and view it a little bit differently. The core root of your attitude in general, maybe that's what needs to be dealt with.
Yeah. It is. And it has to do with what you're saying is you can control how you show up. You can control your performance. You can control this, and you can control your attitude. Um, because when you take ownership of this, you realize that you are then empowered
Right.
to liberate yourself out of some of the old bondage of attachment to the old stories that you used to say to yourself. And we ever and hear me, I have it. I talked about this today with NASA. I have an old story that's easy to default into, Jason.
Right.
Easy to go back when the pressure's there. I went to Manhattan. It's a company called BlackRock, right?
Little
Seven,
company.
they manage, I think, about 7 trillion in assets.
Yeah.
This is Wall Street, right? I'm riding up the private elevator to go up to this conference room. I go up there, and then the negative voice, man, starts kicking on, right? Like, Ronnie, what are you doing here? What do you think? Who do you think you are? Like, this the most powerful company, asset management company in the world. Like, what?
Yeah.
Who are you, right? That's the old story trying to kick in and
Right.
and get me to live default back to how I was many years ago when I didn't believe I could do things, right?
Trying to give you an attitude of doubt, an attitude of fear, an
Yeah,
attitude of inferiority. That voice.
absolutely. And
Right.
and Jay, you want to know why you do that?
Why is that?
You do that because your brain wants to keep you safe. And so
Yeah,
it
yeah.
thinks that if
The
it can
defense
trick you into
mechanism.
believing
Yeah.
some old story about yourself, that you won't keep riding the elevator up. You'll jump off of it and go back down and go back to doing how you used to do it. You won't go to the new meeting, the big dance. You won't play the big game because it thinks it can keep you safe. It's a trick. It's
Right.
you doing this to you. It's like wanting to ask somebody out on a date, right? And you see them and you're like, oh my gosh,
I'm not
I
good
think that
enough.
person's
Right. Yeah.
good. Yeah, I'm not good enough to date that person, so I'm not going to ask them out.
Yeah.
It keeps you from getting rejected or believe the chance of being rejected. But just think about how many things we miss out on if we have this attitude of doubt or say, hey, I can't do this. We'll let somebody else do it because of some old emotional stuff we're carrying. This is the work, bud. This is the purpose of this episode and the ones we're going to do. It's doing the work on ourselves to shift. And when we do that, we start to see ourselves very differently.
I
And
love it.
that's where you really become very powerful.
That's good stuff. Let's keep moving here and hit the next pillar on our list here. And if anyone's taking notes, I've scratched down these, make it a little easy for you. Emotion. So if attitudes are emotional history, you got to look at our emotion. And emotion follows focus, and focus is a choice. So you do the math there. Emotion is a choice. So think through that and write this down if you're watching this video. Emotion follows your focus, and you get to choose what you focus on. Talk to us a little bit about this. I love this. This is fantastic.
All right. So there's two things you got to understand about focus. Number one, natural, predisposed, hardwired things that we may feel emotionally. Like some people, if you see a stick, you think it's a snake, you're going to have an emotional response to that, right? It may not be a real snake, but you believe it's real. So guess what? All the endorphins, everything's, your adrenaline pumps up, like you're ready, fight or flight, you're ready to run off, right? There's things hardwired into us that we see. The fear of falling is very much hardwired into us, right? For children, Jason, one of the things they say that you're born with two fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. And so if fear, every other fear then is learned, right? Then what does that tell us? That we can unlearn some of these fears.
Right.
And so what we do then is we'd say, okay, if emotion follows focus, if I'm focused on the snake or the thing that's going to cause me to feel this fear, like asking someone out that I want to go on a date and focusing on that story, and it does all this stuff to me. If emotion follows that focus, and I can choose what I focus on. Like, I mean, and think about it. You go to sit down at the table to eat, you choose
Right.
which food to eat and consume in that moment, whether to take a drink or eat whatever you're eating, right? You choose. So it's that choice. So you have choice. So emotion follows focus. Focus is a choice. Through deductive reasoning, that would tell us then that emotion is a choice.
Right. So like,
Now,
to put it like in layman's terms, put it really simply,
okay.
pulling
I can choose.
examples out of the air. If I sit around focusing on memories of my grandma passing away, or the test I failed, or the girl who broke my heart, or the job I lost, and I sit around focusing all, on these things, it's natural that my emotions are going to be negative. And therefore, as we've already learned, if my emotions are constantly negative, my attitude's going to be negative. I know negative is a broad term, just trying to boil it down and get as simple as it can. But if I choose to spend my time on how healthy my children are, how beautiful the day is, how lucky I am to have the job that I have, and focus on the beauty and focus on the positive and focus on what's good and what's right in the world and focus on good news and gaming. You could check out that show on my YouTube. But you're focused on the good and you're focused on the positive. That will translate into my emotion, which translate into my attitude. Is that a real easy layman's way to break it down?
Well, that's a layman's way to break it down. It is not always easy. You know, the emotional charge that we feel sometimes of guilt or shame or anger, resentment, bitterness, whatever that could be. When you feel that's very real. Okay. But let me kind of break this down. You said layman's simple, James. Let me tell you this. Okay. Emotions are chemicals. Okay. You guys kind of get what I'm saying? You there? I don't know where you went.
Oh, I've been talking with my mute on.
Yeah, making sure.
I'm with you, brother. I'm with you. You just
slow,
keep going. If I'm old. I might fall asleep or hit the wrong button.
I hope I don't put you.
You're rolling.
What I said, Jay, was emotions are chemicals. Like if you look at how our brain works, right? Emotion is simply chemicals, right? It's chemicals that are fired off in our brain. Okay. Emotions are chemicals. Sugar's a chemical. Caffeine's a chemical. Narcotics are chemicals. Can you get addicted to those things? Absolutely. Absolutely. You get addicted to caffeine. You get addicted to sugar. You want those things. Well, guess what? When you focused on a lot of things from your past that you would say hurt you, that you didn't like, you said your grandmother, the girl that broke your heart, the job you didn't get, or the test you failed.
Yeah.
You focus on that. You fire off those chemicals based on that picture. Your brain works in pictures. And so if I'm thinking about those pictures of what that looked like back then, I'm firing off these chemicals. Well, if I've done this for so long, it's almost like I've become addicted to those chemicals. And so when Ronnie comes along and he talks to you and he gets you motivated, or somebody gets to talk to you, Jason, they're really excited about taking on a new position, doing something new, gaming, and they want to do something awesome. They talk to you and they're excited. But then over time, guess what kicks on? The old addiction to the old chemicals. And so guess what we do? We find an old picture, an old story that we used to that creates that emotional history.
So it's
Right.
like you're almost addicted to focusing on the negative, which translates into negative emotions and a negative attitude because your
Yep.
focus is bad. You're addicted to focusing on the wrong things.
I think the focus is the second step to it. I think and what I mean by that is if you're addicted to these chemicals, like your brain has gotten used to it, like just like it can get used to caffeine, then you start searching for things to focus on that fuel that feeling. Because if you feel something and you're thinking a different picture per se for a moment, it doesn't seem right. Like you're watching a movie that's really sad and you're sitting in the movies laughing your head off and it's a really sad scene. People would be like, what is this person's crazy? Because, right, they're looking at something that would be seen from most people as sad, but yet they're creating this thing of they're laughing at it. There's a disconnect. And so what we try to do is we try to find pictures that align with the feeling. And so what happens is if we don't get control of our focus and focus on better pictures, then we continue to run this old chemical. Our brain fires off these old chemicals. And over time, just like sugar, caffeine, and all the things that I just listed,
Right.
we become addicted to that feeling. And so we wake up some days and we're already expecting the day to go bad or things not to happen well because of how we felt before. And so the key is to say, well, wait a minute,
Right.
today this is an attitude thing. It's not going to be an old emotional history deal. I'm not going to let the old history run me. What could I choose to focus on right now, today, in this moment, that over time is going to fire some new chemicals that then will help me to rewire my brain. It's called neuroplasticity. So if I can hold a better picture of me winning, me achieving, right? Me having a great relationship, me being physically fit, me having some money, taking care of my money, that kind of, I can hold
Right.
that picture. It fires a chemical. And then I can start getting addicted, which is a kind of crazy word, but I can start
Right, yeah.
getting addicted to a new version of me.
So what's the action step? Like, what's a practical action step?
You notice your attitude sucks.
Intentionally focusing on the good and
Yeah,
starting the
right.
day focusing on what's good and joyful and beautiful and uplifting. Like, how can you reset what your brain is kind of used to and your natural tendency to slip into negative emotions and slip into negative attitudes, and then you're all of a sudden wondering why you're a toxic person and nobody wants to be around you? Like, what's a practical action step?
Question you ask yourself, am I using my memory or am I using my imagination?
That's
Because my memory is
interesting.
going to pull up all the old stuff. My imagination is me closing my eyes and picturing the thing that I want to create for the day, and then practicing holding that picture as long as I can. And now, because we've been so hardwired sometimes to think about history and the past and our memory so much, it's easy to default into that. But this right here, Jason, is the work of changing and shifting our attitude. Like you have to say it sometimes and speak it until you can be it. You know, some people say
Yeah.
fake it till you make it. I say be it till you see it. Hold the picture in your mind so that it causes you to fire off some of the good stuff and take action from there. And if you keep taking the action, your brain, because it's such a wonderfully powerful, amazing tool that you can use, it will adapt to where it is you tell it to put your focus.
Yeah, and someone
If
in
you don't tell it
chat,
where to go,
someone in
it's going to go
chat
somewhere by
said,
default.
someone in the chat said a really powerful word, I think, that hits the nail on the head as far as your focus, and that's gratitude.
Mhm.
How powerful is focusing on what you're grateful for and what you're thankful for while you're trying to reset your focus, and then through that reset your emotion and then build it into an overall attitude.
Yeah, we could talk about the attitude, and I think we will.
Attitude
Here.
of gratitude.
Attitude of gratitude.
That could be a
But-
whole episode.
But when you think about it, Jay, think about this, bud. Like, if I am not in a place of gratitude, I'm operating from a place of entitlement.
Right.
And if I think something is owed to me, that is that the world owes me something, then I don't have to work on my perspective at all. Then I just get to sit around thinking people are going to bring me the best stuff. And I can tell you all, as many of you know, the people that become champions in anything, they don't think they're owed anything. Michael Jordan,
100%.
Kobe Bryant, these were guys that were on the court before everybody else and left afterwards. They outworked everybody. They didn't think they were owed anything. The great players of any, they don't think they're owed. That's an attitude. And so when you're just grateful to show up and be like, hey, I got breath in my lungs today and an opportunity to do something with it. Nobody owes me anything. I'm just going to get out here and create. That's an attitude.
Yeah.
And being grateful for the opportunity to do something today, that engages a mindset that you're looking for good things, because why would you waste the day looking for all the bad stuff? Like, what would be
Love
the
it.
point of that?
I love
You
it.
know, so gratitude is one of the things I say, it opens the door for more. And when I'm just grateful to be here and be in the room, like I get invited to sit at some cool tables, but let me tell you, I don't talk to people like I have all the answers and that they're lucky to be in the room with me.
Right. Right.
I show up and sit down at the table, even though I've been a lot of big places. I sit down at the table from a place of gratitude that I've been invited there, and that hopefully I have something to share with them that can move them forward. It's an energy and it's an attitude, and that attitude gets you invited back to places. But nothing is more despisable from people. And this is what I hear from CEOs, business owners all the time. Nobody wants to work with people that think they're entitled. They just
100%.
don't.
I talk about this, and I did a video about how to get a job in esports. And one of the things I talked on was nobody owes you anything. Drop the attitude of entitlement. You know, the attitude of gratitude, the attitude of humility is so appealing. It keeps you learning. It keeps you fresh. It keeps you hungry. It keeps you growing. Broaching across the barrier of confidence into the land of arrogance and ego is just toxic, and people just won't want to be around you, right? I want to keep moving. We've got some other pillars to get to, but
I know
think
we got
this
pillars.
is
Let me say this, and then
go, please.
drop this soundbite in. John Wooden, great coach, UCLA. You know this, Jay, right? Like, obviously, John Wooden said, "Arrogance is confidence that has spoiled." And when you're young, you want to develop confidence. You want to show people that you know what you're doing, that you can do it. There's nothing wrong with that. But you let that turn into arrogance, where like you think you're owed something to sit at that table. Man, people that have been down the road a bit, that have dealt
Mm-hmm.
with people and dealt with great players and great teams, they know, they're like, nah, I just don't want that energy sitting at the table.
Yep.
And so anyway, I think that was worth the
Oh,
15 seconds.
100%. 100%. All right, next up here, we have a really interesting one. The facts don't matter. Now, we're talking about attitudes. What we've learned, basically, attitudes come kind of from your emotions, and emotions can be controlled by what you focus on. Okay, so how in the heck did we get to the facts don't matter? Walk me through that one, Ronnie.
Dude, but I wrote this on the board at Kennedy Space Center doing a training there. And I just wrote, the facts don't matter. Dude, you would have thought those people wanted to kill me. They're like, what? They're like, the facts that we got to get somebody to Mars. You mean the facts don't matter? I'm like, yeah, they do.
Bunch of literally rocket scientists, and you
you're
said
right.
the facts don't matter. Okay, walk me through this one.
I tell people all the time that, most people are like, duh, it ain't rocket science.
Right.
Down there, they're like, oh yeah.
It is
yeah,
rocket science.
Because that's it. But the facts don't matter. Here's the context of this, because understanding context is
Right,
huge.
of course.
Your attitude has a lot to do with the context that you set anyway. And so the context of the facts don't matter is that the same people can be looking at the same fact. They can look at the same thing, but they interpret it two very different ways. They add different meanings to it. And so
Right.
it's the conversation I have many times with, we could take a room full of 100 people. And in our society, let's say in the US, divorce rate is over 50%, right at 50%. If I had 100 people in the room between the ages of, let's say 30 to 60, I'd say, how many of you have ever been divorced? Maybe half the room. Let's just say 50%. I've done this before, Jay, where I say, how many of you been through a divorce? People raise their hand. I ask someone on the left side of the room, you've been through a divorce? Yes. Would you stand up? They stand up. I say, what did you make it mean? And I've done this many times. I've had someone say, hey, I made it mean that I was unlovable. I did it wrong. That my parents were right about how I was unlovable. Like this is it. I was like, okay, so that's what you made it mean. Yes. Okay, will you sit down? Yeah, they sit down. Then I look in the other side of the room. some of you over here raised your hand that been through a divorce. Raise your hand. They raise their hand again. I go, okay, would you pick out a person? Would you stand up? You went through a divorce? Yes. What'd you make it mean? Well, it made it mean that I was free. It was a bad relationship. It was abusive. It was all this. It meant I was free. And I go, okay, great. Thank you. Sit down. They sit down. I then ask the group in the training, I'll say, which of these two people are right?
Right.
And they go, they both are? And I say, yeah, they're both right. Why is it that they're both right, though? Why are they both right? And they say, because they're the ones making up the meaning.
They're defining their own
great.
meaning.
Let's make sure we're taking this slowly here. You just said that they're both right because they're making up the meanings. Yes. Then I say, okay, great. Since they're making up the meanings and you just admitted that they were, then who's making up the meanings in your life?
Right. So you
And
can look.
kind of sit there for a second and they go,
Oh.
I am. And I go, great. Then if you're the one making up the meaning, then why would you ever create a meaning that doesn't serve you in being bold and confident, ready to take on the world, inspired, someone that's focused and really ready to make a difference? Why would you create some other meaning from your past? Is it just so you can feel down and not hold yourself accountable to a bigger goal? Is that what it is? Do you give yourself permission to escape the accountability or any personal responsibility? Why do we do that? And the conversation so much, Jay, is that we create meanings sometimes that we would say are so bad, and we keep replaying those meanings and that emotion and that story that it becomes a very manipulative place to be, where I now manipulate people into feeling sorry for me, and they give me the love that I feel like I didn't get back then.
So when you're saying the facts don't matter, what you're saying is the fact that I lost my job or whatever, that doesn't matter. The meaning, as far as my attitude is concerned, the meaning I apply to that is what matters and what leads to my attitude. So I could look at it as like I'm a failure. The meaning is I'm dumb. I'm never going anywhere, or negative things. Or I could look at this and apply a different meaning. Hey, I'm free from this. That job, I appreciated it. It wasn't the end all be all. Now the world's my oyster. Like, I'm open to other opportunities. So the fact hasn't changed. The meaning I'm applying to that fact is what's changed. And that's why the tagline is the fact don't matter. Does that
doesn't? Now
accurate?
Think about this. I'll give you this really quick. And this is what I was taught, and I'm sitting in my office, so I can do this, right? So we'll take 2 sheets of paper here, right? So let's say on one of them, Jay, I hope you guys can see this. I don't think I have my markers here.
Yeah, we
but
got
on
you.
one of them, I want to write the word fact, right? And on this one sheet of paper where it says fact, can you see that, Jay?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Fact. We could write all those things you just said, like loss of job, right? Someone broke up with me, right? I lost some money, right? Didn't get a promotion, didn't get hired, didn't get the job. These are all facts. We could write that all on this here, right? And then over here, Jay, this is cool. I like this. And we could write the word meaning on this one.
Okay.
Okay. So here we are, meaning.
Yeah.
Fact, I lost the job. Meaning, brand new opportunity for me to step forward and find something else. Fact, I got broken up with. Meaning, that person wasn't for me. Fact, my parents were rude to me when I was growing up, or mean to me. I could make it mean that they didn't love me. Whatever I want to do, like, I get to create these meanings. Here's what our brain does. The moment you see something that you would say as a fact, you then automatically want to put a meaning on it, because that's what your brain does. And then here's what happens. Your brain starts to merge these two together.
Right.
The fact and the meaning. And this becomes your reality that you carry around in your back pocket. And so now, because
your
of these
attitude
facts that went on and the meanings that I created, now I created the meanings. It doesn't necessarily mean they're true. I just made them up for me, because a truth and the truth are not necessarily the same.
Right.
But I made it up, and I put this reality in my back pocket, and I carry it around with me. And everywhere I go, I carry this reality with me. And so I go into a new job and I'm carrying this old baggage. I go into a new relationship, I'm carrying this old baggage. What I was taught as it pertained to attitude and mindset was, as a leader, every single day, I am willing to look at the facts and the meaning and divide them and start to say, wait a minute, the fact that I experienced something doesn't necessarily mean I have to make it mean anything. They're as far as the East is from the West. I get to decide. Now, of course, there's natural responses to losing a job or being broken up with. Absolutely. Those things are very real. But by working on the meanings that I'm putting on it and where I put my focus, I can start to recalibrate my thinking. And now I don't let some old knee-jerk reaction to some fact run me for the rest of my life.
And I think they're kind of related, right? Walking down the street hand in hand, your focus and how you apply meaning to these things.
Absolutely.
You set the meaning and then you focus on the positive meaning.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you get to choose. So the question is if you're choosing, and we are choosing, you're choosing what you tell yourself about this episode you're watching right now. You get to choose what you tell yourself about where you live. You get to choose. You get to choose how you judge someone else. There may be a natural judgment that comes up for you, but you can talk to yourself and say, well, why am I doing that? You can start choosing differently. And when you get that, this is where we're saying you can shift, because all the choices we make, Jason, have costs and benefits. There's benefits to having a crappy attitude. It can get you attention. You get to believe that you're right. You're the center of attention, that nobody understands you. You can have a bad attitude, that your past was so bad. You can have a bad attitude. You can choose that if you want. There's benefits, but there's also costs to it.
Certainly.
If you talk to people that are making it happen, that are really digging in and getting past some of the old attitude and emotional history that they had, you talk to those people, they'll tell you that the benefits to having a bad attitude are not worth the cost.
Right.
And it can cost
100%.
you a seat at the table with a great organization.
100%.
It can cost you a job. It can cost you a relationship. It can cost you your own peace of mind. And so if you're choosing, why not choose the positive approach? Something that serves you. Some story that when you're walking into a meeting, you feel empowered. When you're getting ready to start the game, you're thinking about stuff that causes you to feel confident and bold and to play with everything you got versus playing not to lose because of the old attitude. This is the work, man, but it's powerful when we do it.
I agree, man.
Yeah.
So the facts don't matter. That's really good stuff. Where our focus
where
is.
mindset is pertained, Jason, it doesn't. Where mindset, it doesn't. Now,
Right.
That if I'm sabotaging relationships and so forth, that gives me feedback. I can look at those facts and those results and say, hey, how can I change and how can I get better?
Yeah.
But as far as just what went on in my past, those facts don't matter. I get to decide how I interpret those now, presently, not how I interpret them back then.
Right.
Because it was a knee-jerk response back then. But now, knowing what I know now, I can say, what did I make up about that back then? And what if that wasn't true? And in that moment, we have the power to create. That's choice.
Love it. Let's go to the next pillar. There's a difference between a truth and the truth. What are we talking about here? Again, we're talking about attitude, talking about emotions that go in attitude, how focus controls your emotions. We're talking about how you can apply meanings to the different facts in your life. Now, there's a difference between a truth and the truth. Where are we at in that one?
Well, the a truth could be what you were saying, Jay. It's like my grandmother died. That's a truth. But the truth is going to be the experience that I create as a result from that. And so a truth is that somebody walked out of my life. But the truth can be that I'm open now to find someone that could be better for me, better suited for me. A truth is that someone passed away and maybe I believe that they're moving on to a better place. A truth is that they died. The truth is what I'm creating within myself. And here's what's powerful about the truth part. It's when you spend time with the right people and you have people that really can see a different perspective than maybe you see it. You're always open to feedback and asking questions so that you can gain a greater capacity on what the truth could be. Like all the great philosophers will tell you, the more they learned, the more they realized they didn't know anything.
Right.
And so that was the truth, right? Yeah. Like they knew a lot, that's a fact, but they realized then their truth was, I just don't know anything. There's so much more. And that's the difference, a truth and the truth.
So it's kind of married to the facts and the meaning in a way, right? It's like there are things that happen, there's a truth, there's a fact, but you could decide to apply the meaning you want to focus on. You can decide the truth in your situation to set your mind right, to set your focus right, to set your emotions right, therefore your attitude right.
That's right. It's your truth. Now, a truth doesn't mean it's the truth. And some people say, well, there's just one truth, but maybe there's many different truths based on different perspectives that people have about things. Maybe everything is not so black and white, one or the other. Maybe there's a lot of other different facets to a certain scenario. And the truth could be that it's broader. And when I'm open to learning more about the truth, is I don't just, we have this phrase, Jay, it's called locking on and locking out. A lot of times we lock on to a truth that we
Right.
think is real, and we lock out all the other possibilities
Yeah.
of what it could be, the
Yeah.
other truths that are out there.
We talk
We
about
lock
this a
onto
lot.
it, and then we so try to defend it.
Yeah, we
Because
talk
one
about
of the
this when
truths
it comes
we
to
have, if you're always
to
right, that makes you valuable.
we talk about this a lot when it comes to echo chambers in today's political landscape, where
Yep.
people surround themselves, whether you're left or right, it doesn't matter. You surround yourselves on social media and you get stuck in an echo chamber where you're so convinced that you're right and your side has the truth. There's no middle ground, there's no compromise, there's no trying to understand the other side. And that's probably one of the reasons we have such a great divide in this country right now, where people just grasp onto it, exactly what you were talking about. In the context of attitude, I think we need to be careful about, how we define these things. What meaning are we putting on things, and what's that going to do to our attitude?
Yeah, when your attitude is that I know what I know, and that's it. It's the old saying, when you think that you have arrived, you can go ahead and unpack your bags because you're going to be stuck there
Yeah.
for a really long time. And that's so much to do with attitude. Some of the most powerful people that I've been around, Jason, the people that I've met who are great influencers, are some of the most humble and open and kind people
Right.
that you've ever met. And we get this persona from people that the people that really make it are just mean, and that they're so ugly, and they treat people awful. Well, there's some people that rise to the top that way. But I can also tell you that there's a lot of great people out there that really care about making this planet better, and that their attitude is about serving. Their attitude's about doing things well and creating space for someone else to come along afterwards and behind them to do something better. And that's an attitude thing,
Yeah.
man.
100%.
That's attitude.
Let's keep rolling here to the next pillar. I love this one. Your energy introduces you before your words ever do. Huge believer in this. Absolutely, absolutely love this. The first thing that came to my mind when we put this down was just the power of walking in a room with a big, bright smile on your face and just like excited and ready to go. But I know it's way, way deeper than that. So we're talking about attitude. Your energy introduces you before your words ever do. Walk me through that.
All right. Let me give you another phrase to go along with this because it's the same deal. What's coming to you is actually coming from you. There you go.
Walk me through it, man.
All right. You guys, there's so many people that as we do this, and I talk about mentors and people that I have been able to study with and learn. I read. I read all the time. I love to read. People say, I don't have time to read. I'm like, you do have time to read. You just haven't made time to read. 15 minutes a day. Some people come in, Ronnie, I read 6 hours today. I'm like, well, tell me how much you retained.
Right.
Well, not much. So you wasted a lot of that. I read in like 15-minute increments. But in reading, you grab a different perspective from people. And some of the great leaders that I have learned, one of them is a guy named Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But he said that that we wind up our energy, which is ultimately our attitude. The more we focus on that emotional stuff, that puts off an energy, a charge. He said that energy provokes people to behave oftentimes in ways that we don't want them to behave.
Right.
So even though we're seeing somebody act a fool or act ugly or be rude or be whatever, maybe there's something about us that is provoking that. And I add fuel to that because I get so angry at them because they don't act how I think they're supposed to act.
Right.
And so basically their energy in a sense controls me, but my energy is what's provoking them to act a certain way. So now it's like just
Yeah.
this back and forth.
Spiraling. Yeah.
It's a spiral.
Yeah.
And so when I can say, wait a minute, what's coming to me is what's coming from me. If I'm seeing a lot of negativity, then maybe I'm part of the solution
Right.
here,
Maybe
that I just got to check myself.
that's
and
what
keep
I'm
bringing,
projecting. Yeah.
yeah, it's putting something better onto it, right? And so that whole idea that your energy introduces you, a big smile, man, a place standing open, ready to be grateful to be in the room, like, that kind of stuff, man, is like, it's gold for people that are really thinking about building a team.
Yeah.
Like, I coach a lot of companies, right? And these guys that are CEOs of these companies, they're pretty smart people. Like, they got a team. I got one guy that I coach, his team's pharmaceutical company. Dude, he's got a physicist on the team. He's got a chemist. He's got a biologist. He's got all these people. And I go into the room and I'm the one talking to them and teaching them and training them. But in my mind, my energy is, guys, I'm just happy to be in here. Like, I want to learn. But I walk away, Jason, from doing trainings and being in a dialogue with these people to where I'm the one that's learning probably as much as them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Right.
But that's the beauty of having an energy that is inviting of people and saying, hey, I don't know everything. I really want to learn. Man, that kind of stuff, that energy, that attitude will get you a seat at the table. I keep saying a seat at the
100%.
table, but it'll give you proximity to people that you really do want to learn from. Because the moment, listen, I have people ask me all the time, dude, I'll carry your suitcase. I'll quit what I do if I can just follow you and go to trainings that you do and sit through. I have that, people ask me that every month.
I hear the same thing in gaming. Yeah.
Right. And so I get that. And I'm like, oh, that's great. But do you think I want to bring somebody on to work and be in my space that thinks they are so deserving of being there that now I'm supposed to serve them versus them showing up and wanting to serve to get something from me? Like,
Right.
This is what we need to look at and understand our positioning, the seat that we sit in. And this attitude and energy that we bring, man, that's, people feel that before you talk.
Oh yeah.
I've been around some people that,
oh yeah. Even go back to like your childhood. I think most people can remember there's just that guy or that lady in your community or your church or your school, whatever. People just gravitated towards them, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they're gregarious or whatever it might be. It's just everywhere they went, people just gravitated towards them. I don't know. Is it body language? Is it a huge smile? Is it just a positivity that, what are some action items, to have a good energy to put out when you walk in a room or walk in an interview? What are like a couple quick action items that you could think of off the top of your head to project that energy that draws people to you, that makes people want you involved and want to hire you and want to play with you or whatever that would be?
Yeah, I think that there's lots of different things that we can think about, but one is when you think that the people that you see, regardless of their position, this is one of the things that I have to think about. The people that I'm in front of, regardless of whether they make six figures or multiple seven figures, or some of the CEOs I've been at the table with, I remind myself that we are all, every one of us, are in this thing called the human condition. And that we all have hurts and pains and hopes and dreams and fears and so forth. So when I walk into the room, I'm trying to connect with the human being and show value to them and mutual respect of them before I start trying to give them any amazing wisdom
Right.
and tell them how smart I am.
Right.
The old saying, we always want to connect before we try and correct. And we correct by sharing all this information. But when you
connect on the
with someone,
human level first.
Human being here, this is a team I want to be a part of, made up of people with all sorts of different perspectives and beliefs. I'm here to serve. I'm here to give something to help them out. Man, when you do that, let me tell you, it might not sound like the cool thing, guys, but I will tell you, it is something that will separate you from the masses, because most people, all they're thinking about is, what can I get out of this?
Right. What's in it for
But
me?
when you walk into a room going, hey, what can I give? How can I serve? How can I make this better? Man, it makes you stand out amongst a bunch of people that are selfish. I mean, this is a lot of our society is, I want it and I want it now. And I want to get that. And so remembering that and going back to the idea of gratitude, being grateful to be there, and really then being confident and believing in yourself, knowing, hey, I'm put here for such a time as this. And if I'm in this meeting, there's something that I can bring to it and make a contribution to, and do that from a very humble and compassionate way. I think those kind of things, just being appreciative of the opportunity to be there, you put off a different energy.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
do that long enough, I think people start to trust you, Jason. I think people see that and go, you know what, this person really is considerate of the rest of us.
So
Um,
be humble, be thankful, treat people, like human beings. Get to know them before you're trying to grasp at whatever you're trying to get out of the situation. Smile. These are all good ways to put off positive energy.
Yeah. There's an old saying, Jason, that says when it comes to like a mentor or somebody, think if you're walking into a room with a boss, someone that you're going to look up to that may hire you, a team part of, is focus not on what's in their hand. Don't focus on what they can give you. Focus on what's in their heart, and
Yeah, I
and
like that.
gain from them who they are, what they're about, what good things you can see in them, and show up trying to pull that and mine out those good things versus let me see what I can get from this person and how they
Yeah.
can help me climb the ladder of success. Because people can pick up on that. You can sniff that out
Yeah.
very, very quickly, So
So
there you go.
let's hit the next one here. I think we're getting down to the bottom. Flip back to win. I know you like this one. What's this one mean? When people write this in their notes, they're going to need a little descriptor here. Maybe I'll type in a descriptor. Flip back to win. What do we got?
All right. So when you get ready to walk into a meeting, I'll give you the example, and you guys can see it behind me. Like I got NASA stuff back here. When you get invited to go to NASA, it's kind of a big deal. Like, it changes kind of your resume. But that doesn't happen overnight, right? By the way, even the vetting process of a year of being asked lots of questions, it was almost a year of making sure I answered questions right and going through some screening to be able to get there the first time. But when you go to NASA at Kennedy Space Center, where they launch all the rockets, Cape Canaveral, there's a big building. It's called the Vehicle Assembly Building. And on the building, there's a 22-story tall flag. You can pull it up. You can Google Vehicle Assembly Building, fourth largest building by mass in the world. Has the largest garage doors on it in the world. The garage doors open up, the side doors, and the rockets roll in and out on the crawler, it's called.
Yeah.
And then there's this big NASA symbol. And when I went there, I did my first training there. I was so nervous, but then I pulled it off, and I got invited back. But when I looked back at the Vehicle Assembly Building as I was leaving the property that day, I looked in my rearview mirror and I saw it, and I had some real conversation with myself, Jason, saying, "Hey, I was afraid of you. This scared me.
Right.
I was nervous, but I got you. I came here. I did my job. I did it. I gave it everything I had. I got you." That's what I said to myself. I got you. And I remember that moment like it was yesterday. I remembered that moment today before I did a training session with NASA again today virtually. I flipped back to times in my life
Yeah.
that caused me to feel good, sure of myself, that caused me to stir up that fire, that passion in me of why I'm doing what I do. Some people would say, like you said, Jason, my grandmother passed away. And some people can use that and go, oh, my life is going to suck because my grandmother passed away. Some people will say, wait a minute, my grandmother, her death, her life, it meant something. And I'm going to continue to carry on the good things that I learned from my grandmother. And you attach something different. You can hold that thought from your past and use it. Then you flip back to it, get stirred up, and then you flip it up into the present moment, getting your mind right. And you walk into the boardroom, you pick up the controller, you start the game, you get in the conversation, you pick up the phone because you flipped back to something that got you stirred up. And now you flip it up to the present and you use that energy to dive in.
Yeah. So if you're a pro player, you flip back to your best moments. You flip back to your most dominating games. Maybe if you've already won a trophy or whatever, you flip back to that memory and you can do it. And that's where your focus is. And that's going to bring up the right emotions. That's going to bring up the right attitude because you're looking back at the good. I wrote down on the sheet, look back at the good times, the confident times, the successful times, the passionate times. And that's what you're flipping your memories back to in order to win.
Yeah. I mean, think about teams like, say college basketball teams or even professional teams, the teams that have been there before. You can tell a lot of times, like in college, I can remember watching like the NCAA playoff teams. And when, Duke had played, or Kentucky, or all these different teams that were so used to being there in the Final Four, that they operated with a bit more of confidence and fluid than someone who was there the first time. And, they call them a Cinderella team the first time, but there was this confidence they had because they had been there. And I think that has a lot to do with memory and going back to, wait a minute, we've done this before. So
been here, seen it, done it, surfed it, skied it.
That's it. That's it. And, even Phil Jackson, guys, I have to tell you, Phil Jackson coached for, when he coached the Bulls and went on to coach the Lakers. He wrote this book called 11 Rings. I don't know if you've read it, but phenomenal.
I haven't. I've heard of it.
He talked about having the players like the Bulls and even the Lakers reading books before they would go on to play, have them quiet time, getting their mind right, focusing on what they wanted to happen. Michael Jordan talked about it. I could see myself hitting the shot. The whole muscle memory of it through the shot. These are the kind of things we're flipping back to, bringing that into the present moment. And when you do that, you're ready, and you walk into the room and you walk onto the court. You step into the game in a different spot because you're flipping back to something that served you. Now, some people might say, well, Ronnie, I don't know if I have that. You got to find it. And if you, and hear me on this one, if you haven't had that, and I'm going to suggest that you probably have, maybe you just haven't thought about it, but there's things that could cause you to feel that again. But then if you haven't had it, just close your eyes, spend some time, frontal lobe activated,
imagination
60% of your brain. It makes up the largest mass of your brain. Holding the picture of something that causes you to feel good, to feel confident. Hold that picture. If you can't bring it from the back, create it in the present moment. Meditate on that. Meditation means to make familiar. Meditate on that picture of what it's going to be like to win. How's it going to feel? What's it going to look like? How's it going to sound? All that. It makes it real because your brain doesn't know the difference. This is why virtual reality is such a crazy thing.
Yeah.
Get into virtual reality, your brain doesn't know the difference. It's pictures. And so this is what we're doing. And so flipping back and flipping up, it's a powerful tool, Jay. And I use it all the time. I'm getting ready to pick up and do a conference call. I'm feeling nervous. I'm talking to somebody who's asking me to come and train their teams. And I'm like, oh, God, can I do this? I go, wait a minute. And I get my head right. And then I pick up the phone and I step in confidently versus, the way they say the difference between playing to win versus playing to not lose.
Right.
And
100%.
Flipping back can give you that. So
100%. We're getting down to the bottom here. I think this one is pretty self-apparent. Surround yourself with those with good attitudes and have boldness to set boundaries.
Yeah.
We're running a little long, but this is too important. You want to have a good attitude. You want to work on your attitude. We've all agreed attitude is super important. We all can improve our attitudes. Should always be looking at our attitudes, working on our attitudes. Surround yourself with people that have good attitudes. Talk about that a minute.
I can give you so many perspectives on this, bud, but I'll tell you, people that want to make it happen. And I know the people watching this episode, they're wanting to make it happen. Listen, you got to surround yourself with people that want to make it happen also, and that want to work with you, that see the gift in you. I want to be around people that that can speak to me in a way that excites me. And now if I don't have the people around me, maybe, traveling, can't get a hold of people, I've got to learn to talk to myself in a positive way. I got to honor me. I got to remember, I got to speak to myself in a good way. The other side of it is you want people around you that see the greatness in you, that like Jason with us, our friendship, we've known each other, gosh, a long time, man, 16, 17 years. And, we've just stayed connected. Every time we talk, we've always encouraged each other and been so grateful and appreciative of each other. You want people in your world that way.
Yeah.
If there are people that come into my circle and they start to bring a lot of negativity, they don't come into the circle anymore.
Right.
And I'll tell you guys this from a broader perspective. I don't know how many of you on here watching this have kids, but like I have an 11-year-old daughter, Addison. I got a 6-year-old daughter, Kennedy. I don't let a lot of negativity come into my home because I know watching television, if it's a bunch of drama, negativity, news, all this stuff, they're absorbing that. And it's shaping their attitude and their emotion and how they see the world. And so I'm trying to protect that. And so you have to put up boundaries and say, hey, I got to guard the gate here of my life, my home, my mind. And I'm going to start putting good stuff in versus letting all the negativity creep in and it start changing what I think is possible for me.
Yeah. So that's the flip side of the coin, right? You want to surround yourself with people with good attitudes. people that are supportive of you, people that bring something to the table, people that believe in you. But on the other side of that coin, you also need to set boundaries and be selective with people that are always just putting you down, that are just not believing in you, that are always criticizing you and just dragging you down like an anchor to the ocean floor. Yeah, you have to set those boundaries and choose the people that you surround yourself with wisely.
Yeah, it may sound in the beginning, I think if you do it from the right place, it may seem that you're a bit arrogant or conceited or that you're selfish, Jason. But I can tell you that if you believe in yourself and that you believe that you were given gifts and talents and abilities and you were put on this planet for a reason, you become very, very selective about people that you'll hang around or allow to hang around you. If they aren't about contributing and supporting what it is that you're doing. Now, listen, if you want a good friend, you got to be a good friend too. So it works the other way.
Yeah.
You got to be somebody that you would want to hang around with, right? So it does work that way. But I can tell you, my closest friends, you don't need a lot of friends. You just need a few really good ones. And when you have a few good ones, they can be honest with you, speak into your life, encourage you, but they can also call you on the carpet on stuff and say, hey, you said you weren't going to do this, but you're doing it.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of relationships that we want to develop. And those don't just happen overnight. But the key to that is surround yourself with good people, because you really do become like so much of who you hang around.
Birds
and
of a
the
feather.
environment that you're in.
Yeah.
And that's I think when I really learned that more and more and became, not just learned it, but became okay with it, Jason, that's when I think my life really started to change. It's where I started making more progress because I wasn't carrying a lot of dead weight negative energy of people that really, we call them haters. It's like everybody's got haters, but you don't focus on carrying those people that may not really want to go with you. They may not be for you. I tell people all the time, there are people that are with you that aren't for you. And there are people that are for you that may not be with you. But you're trying to surround yourself as much as possible with people that are for you, that want to help you be better. But you yourself also have to be willing to contribute that in their life as well. If you want to have a friend, you have to be a friend, but surround yourself with good people. And that makes a huge amount of difference in what you think is possible for you, your attitude and your overall outlook.
Absolutely. I think it's absolutely critical. And now we're going to move on. Man, I don't think we got enough time to do this one today.
All right.
Feed your focus. Now, we've broached this topic a little bit throughout this discussion of attitude and working on our attitudes. It's what we've been talking about. What you focus on is going to determine your emotions, and those emotions are going to greatly contribute to your attitude. And you need to focus on the good and the positive and the beautiful and the joyful and the uplifting. You surround yourself with those kinds of people. Feed your focus. And this might be a whole other episode down the road, as we're running pretty long with your time today. But victim mentality versus responsible mentality. Are you owning your stuff? In the shortest version that we could do.
do this broad topic. Let's do it in 2 minutes. Here's the deal, guys. Let's say it. Okay. When we carry a victim attitude, let's say it's a character. Let's say you can jump in and out of characters. Like you get on the phone and you talk to your mom. You're like, hey, Mom, yeah, everything's great. Doing good. And then you pick up the phone, you're talking to your girlfriend or your whoever it is, and you're like, nah. You shift into these different characters. And so one of the things with having this victim mindset is we're this character where we act like everything in the world is being done to us. And we are victimized sometimes. Like people can break into our car or our home, they can hurt it. I mean, these things happen, especially with young people. We can be victims, but to have a victim mindset and play that character and allow that to be this, we're talking about this lens earlier, but that's the lens that you see the world through.
Boo-hoo, woe is me all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge, listen, we'll do a whole episode then, Jay, on all the benefits of pretending to be a victim. And it's a huge form of manipulation. Like you can manipulate people when you act like, well, nobody cares about me. And the reason I was always late was because traffic and it's just nobody gets me. Like we can stay in that place. That's cool. Right. But it's a big manipulation thing to try and do that. You try to get people, you manipulate them. You manipulate through emotion by acting like the world is all against you. It's very manipulative. Right. But when you step into this place, which I think is the opposite, is responsible, that's where you start to say, hey, I'm the one that's at cause for my experience. Now, I may
Right.
not be at cause for all the events that have happened, where I was born, how much money my family had, how much education I got. I might not be all of that. Those are circumstances. Like, I might not be able to control all of that. But what I can control, back to the attitude part, is I can control the experience that I create.
Right.
And the experience is what's created within the circumstance. And that has to do with focus, that internal dialogue, how you're talking to yourself about things, the attitude that you choose to stand into, and ultimately what I think the character that you choose to step into. And the more you play a specific type of a character, the more it becomes who you are. Doesn't mean the other character is not always going to be there. You might not be perfect in it all the time at all. I mean, you got to start somewhere. But that's a big thing, man. Like, when you own the experience, instead of going, yeah, that person, they made me mad, they pissed me off. Well, maybe they didn't piss you off. Maybe the perspective you chose to have on how they did what they did is what pissed you off. Now you create that experience, but you're blaming them.
Yeah.
And so there's a fine line of working in between that, bud, on the experience we create versus just the circumstances we see. And I think if we really want to be a leader and really want to make an impact for people, we got to take responsibility for the experience we create. We can't be a victim to how much money's in our account. We can't be a victim to the way people in our society's acting. We can't be victims to how our parents raised us. We can't be victims to how our teacher talked to us back then, or the person that broke our heart. We can't be victim to that. We can go, hey, this is what I learned. I'm going to keep moving forward. And that shift there in attitude can make all the difference, bud. It's a long conversation, but you said do it quick. So
Yeah. No, I think
do it quick.
that's a great summary of it. So we can not roll too long with your time today. The next one, just about done here. Motion and consistency fuel self-confidence.
Yep.
Emotion follows motion. I think I put too many pillars in this episode, man. We were worried about this earlier. We're like, we could go 5 hours.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. This is so worth it. So, hey, listen,
this is a great base episode.
People don't have to be a victim to the idea that this has gone an hour and 20 minutes. We can be responsible and say, hey, if I didn't like it, I can turn it off.
That's right.
Right. But emotion follows motion. So, Jason, have you ever not felt like working out, but you went and worked out at the gym anyway?
All the time.
How's it feel when you're done working out?
Fantastic.
There you go. So the emotion of feeling good followed the motion that you took, the action step that you took. And so many times what we do is we wait on feelings to act.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I think I've learned that costs us so many opportunities. That if I wait to act only when I feel a certain way, I'm going to miss the mark probably 75% of the time, because a lot of times I just don't feel like it. Now, as I continue to condition myself and practice playing that character of responsible and stepping in and being bold, I start to feel like it more and more. But emotion is one of these things that emotion tends to follow. Instead of waiting on feelings to act, we need to learn to act our way into feeling. Be kind even when you don't feel like it, and you'll start to feel more like being kind. Right? Be excited even when you don't feel about it. Step in and do something spontaneous and give your best to something even when you don't feel like it. And what happens is you start to fire off those chemicals, you rewire your brain, and now it's easier to be someone who feels that emotion that you say you want to feel. But we have to do the work. It's not like it's a download that you just click a button, you get a download of all the greatest feelings in the world. Like that's why people do so many drugs. It's like they want it in a bottle, they want it in a pill. And it's like, no. If we want to do this, we're going to work for it and make it happen. But when you do that, man, it fuels a confidence.
And there's discipline in there, right? Like, it takes discipline to do these things when you don't feel like doing them, right? And my children, as they're growing up, I've always tried to preach to them, as the loving dad. It's like, look, do what's right, even when it's hard, and especially when it's hard. Just go do the right thing. Handle your business. Do what you know you need to do. And have that discipline. And I think there's some discipline in this, right? And if you get moving and you have motion, the emotion is going to catch up with you, and you're going to feel good about it, and you're going to be living that life that you wanted to be living in the first place. If you're sitting on the couch waiting until you feel like it, you might never get there.
You might not. Here's a couple of quick phrases here as far as discipline. People ask me a lot, Ronnie, I know I need to work on my self-confidence. How do I build greater self-confidence? And the one word that I tell them is consistency. When you can see yourself being consistent or disciplined, as you're saying, Jay, when it's time to do something, when you see yourself doing that again and again, the more you see yourself doing that, the more you're going to feel like that's who you are, because you're always observing and critiquing, making up meanings for what you see, and you're seeing yourself doing it. You start believing, maybe I can do it. Maybe I can work out 3 days a week. Maybe I can work out 4 days a week. Maybe I can start eating right and start drinking more water versus soda. Maybe I can get my, whatever that is,
Right.
because you're seeing yourself consistently do it. And that increases your self-image and your confidence. And the discipline component of that, when you see yourself being disciplined when it's hard, it's an old saying, Jason, you've probably heard it. If you'll do what's hard, life gets easy. But
Right.
if you do what's easy, life gets hard. And if we're always looking for the easy road, then we don't develop really great discipline, and I don't think we get stronger and better. And so, yeah, there you go, bud. That was it. How was that?
I'm writing that down. If you do what's easy, life gets hard. That's good for the notes, for people that are taking the notes, you know. And you know, I think this stuff is absolutely sensational. I really think it's gold. Neither one of us pretends that we know it all, and we'll be the first to admit that we're out there trying to improve and trying to grow every single day. But if we've managed to gather some wisdom, if we've managed to gather some experience that we can share with the gaming community, and on this topic, attitude, that I'm super, you know, happy about doing the show and super happy about offering what we can offer. And I'm really confident it's going to help some people. Emotion follows motion. I mean, way too many people I've known in gaming wait till they feel like it before they do what they know they should be doing. You just go do what you know you should be doing, and the emotions will catch up with you. Well, anyway, all right. So the bonus question topic. So I get it here on the right place on the screen, and then we're going to wrap it up. We'll do a short after show. If you're watching this on YouTube, we film this live on my Twitch, which is also Jason BW Lake. Generally speaking, on Thursday nights, 6 Eastern, if we're able to do it that week. You can follow Ronnie on Twitter and follow me on Twitter for updates on that. And each time after the show, we try to hang out with Twitch chat just a little bit and do an after show. Before the after show, what are you committed to? Commitment equals results. We're talking about attitude. We're talking about improving our attitudes, monitoring our attitudes, and, you know, growing our attitudes, and just having a happier, healthier, more successful each and every day. What are you committed to? Talk to me about this one.
Well, you know, every day when we're checking our attitude, you know, I get to ask myself, you know, am I committed to doing the work, the hard work, digging in? Am I committed to, you know, I've written 2 books. Yeah, I don't know if you can see them back there, but this one of the things we tell people all the time, the hardest thing about writing a book is not writing. The hardest part is sitting your butt down to write.
It's so
And
true.
that's making yourself do something. And so in the moment, checking yourself, what am I committed to in this moment? Am I committed to just wanting to write a book, or am I committed to writing a book? Am I, you know, do I just want to be a better player, or am I committed to being a better player? Because it doesn't matter what you want. Everybody wants something. The question is, what am I committed to in it? So every day I get to check. Today, when I was doing the thing with NASA, I said, one of the things that we can do is we can ask ourselves before every meeting, before we pick up the phone, before we send an email, before we talk to someone, we can ask ourselves, hey, what am I committed to here? What's my commitment? And if you can check that, we call it staying in the question, Jay, staying in the question all day long. What am I committed to right now? Am I committed to eating right and doing this right now? Or am I committed to eating some junk food? What am I doing? What am I committed to? I'm committed to this. And owning the commitment. When you own that commitment, man, you start looking at what you're doing, and then you start checking yourself as you move through the day. You can start creating a day that's really a lot better than what you would have if you didn't check yourself on it. And you start building up some momentum. And now you start moving into the next level of better because you got committed to it. And a lot of times people want to be this great player. They want to be the expert, the pro. But every professional, every expert was once an amateur. They just were really committed to doing what it took to become the expert or the pro. That's in anything in life. A lot of times, if you're committed to a marriage, like you're committed to making it work, even when things are ugly, things don't go the way you want, you're not getting your way. These are the kind of things that make all the difference, no matter what it is we're doing, Jay. This is all of it. And this is the beingness that we bring to our life. And it can change everything for us. Might not change it overnight, but man, it can start to make some adjustments in how we're doing our life. And those things are compounding, they're cumulative. The next thing you know, we've got something like, wow, that looks pretty good
Heck
because
yeah.
of the commitment piece. And so this is attitude, checking ourselves, staying present each day, and
Being
really
committed to improving your attitude, being committed to focusing on the good things, because you know that's going to create different emotions, and those emotions are going to roll over to a different attitude. You know, being committed to surrounding yourself with the right people and setting those boundaries, being committed to a lot of the things, on the outline from here on out. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. And I'll just tell you this, Jay, before we kind of wrap up. My mentor would say to me, he'd say, Ronnie, do you want to know how I know you're committed to something? And I would say,
Yeah.
how? And he would say, based on the result that you produce. He said, until you're producing that result and making that happen, you aren't committed to it. He said, you're just committed to wanting it.
Right.
He goes, and what we want and what we're committed to are very different things. And that's been a staple for me. I've stood on it for so long. I can want to be a pro gamer. I can want to be a great business owner. I can want to be an author. I can want to be a good husband. I can want to be a good dad. But until I get committed to it and hold myself accountable to it, and that's the only way we're going to know. And that's how, when I'm coaching different team CEOs, business owners, when I'm coaching people one-on-one, I'm looking at the results we're producing, because I know that that's going to show us what we've been committed to. And if we stay committed long enough and do the work, good things are going to happen. You can trust that. We reap what we sow. You can trust that. So
Absolutely, man. I think that's a great place to cut off our YouTube video for this round. Thank you very much if you made it through this. I'll tell you something. You made it through this video. You're sitting on YouTube. Seriously, applause to you. You're serious about changing your attitude. Follow us along in this series. Let us know in the comments below what you'd like us to talk about, and check in with each episode. Hey, I'm still here. We'd like to see who's following along. We'd like to see if you find this helpful. We'd like your advice on different topics or different anything. We're going to read all the comments, and we really appreciate you watching. Stay tuned here on Twitch for a little after show, but for YouTube, we're going to cut it loose, and we'll be out. Thank you very much for watching. Please hit subscribe.
Awesome, guys. See you next time.
And we'll see you in the next episode.